Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We have our top 5 MVP preview here today. We're doing both youth and high school, and I'm very excited for this one. I mean, these are the best of the best. This is the best players in the Bears, so very excited to go over this one. And I think especially, really in both, but especially in the youth, I feel like this is one of the tighter MVP races we've had since BBN has returned, and maybe ever. I mean, there's so much talent in our youth right now that I think this is going to be really, really fun down to the wire MVP race. So let's go ahead and get right into it here with the number 1 preseason MVP on the rankings here. It's got to be nobody else than Harrison Blaebaum. Harrison was number 2 in MVP voting in the summer, number 2 in the fall. I think if there were a full season best hitter in the Bears, it would have been Harrison Blaebaum. And I think this guy right now has got to be the MVP favorite going into the season. Bernie, I want to go ahead and start with you here. I mean, this guy, I think, strictly offensively and strictly age appropriate, there cannot be a better hitter in the Bears right now than Harrison Blaebaum when you compare him to the age he's playing. I mean, this guy's absolutely dominant. Bernie, obviously I think you expect the numbers just to come down from a counting stat standpoint. I mean, I think it'd be hard for him to replicate the numbers exactly from 11-12U to 12-13U, just because I think the pitching gets a little bit better. But in terms of the OPS plus and the power numbers, I think we're looking at another monster season for Harrison. What are your expectations for Harrison going into here as the MVP favorite, in my opinion?
Yeah, look, he had a year that's almost impossible to replicate last year. He had an amazing year. And I actually think for 2024, we could see the home runs over the fence numbers go up. I think we play on a lot of the same fields that I played on last year. I think this year a lot of the balls that hits are going to go out. Other than that, like I said, doubles and stuff might be sliding down, but they're still going to be way up there among the top in the Bears. I actually think his over the fence home run numbers could be up this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. I think if there were an area you could nitpick Harrison, maybe it is those over-the-fence home runs. He wasn't necessarily the leader in that regard in the Bears, but in terms of doubles, hits, we've never had a player put up those kind of numbers. Moving into number 2, KJ, I think it's ZZ Garcia. I mean, in terms of the most dynamic player in the entire youth Bears, a guy who's going to contribute on all sides of the ball, I think you got to say ZZ might be the best player in the Bears right now in the youth. Obviously this guy, I think the ceiling is obviously super high, but I think when you talk about platinum glove defense, what he could do on the mound, and obviously the athleticism in general, and on top of that, I think 13 Floyd might be the best youth team this spring and summer. So when you take all that into account, I think ZZ has a really strong case to be the MVP. What do you think, KJ, about ZZ's MVP case going into the spring-summer season?
Yeah, I thought he had a great year last year, but last year he went through a long slump during the fall. So, if you take away that slump, he had a absolute monster season, and he maybe competes for MVP last year. So I think he's a better hitter than he was last year. I think it's a safe bet to say he's not going to go on a slump like that again. His exit velo went way up. Everything's pointing in the direction of his numbers going up, so I think he's going to have another great season.
Yeah, I think, Harrison maybe has the edge on ZZ offensively, but in terms of the overall game, I think ZZ may be the best player in the youth right now. Bernie, number 3, we're going with Diego Buccio. This is our reigning MVP, won it in the fall. I mean, in terms of the fall numbers he put up was absolutely otherworldly. There's been very few players who've been able to out-hit Harrison in any stretch of time, much less the fall. A full season, the fall, Diego had a higher OPS, higher average than Harrison. But on the other flip side of it, the spring, summer, he wasn't necessarily in MVP form. So, Bernie, I know you kind of mentioned before the show that there's a case to be made that Diego should be number 1 here in the preseason MVP talk. What do you think about Diego's MVP chances in the spring, summer season?
Yeah, look, I think the lowest you put on this list is 3. Like you said, he had an amazing fall. Didn't necessarily have a great spring. So I think you're kind of trying to judge, is the spring more normal Diego or is the fall more Diego? For me, at least, I would lean more toward the fall. I saw this guy take a lot of BWL at bats. This guy had some bombs. I think he's one of the best hitters in youth, and I see no reason why we don't get something close to that fall resume we saw.
Yeah, again, best hitter on the best team is typically the MVP award winner, and I think Diego can certainly be in that position where if 13U Floyd comes out and is as good as I think they're going to be, I think Diego could be the leader of that offense. If it's not Diego and if it's not ZZ, KJ, it might be Garrett Knight, who is probably the, to the uninformed, maybe like the wild card pick here. Like, how can you say Garrett Knight's an MVP favorite? But I think if you go on the track he's on and also the BWL season that he just had, I think it's hard to say that Garrett Knight is not one of the toughest outs in the entire Bears right now. KJ, I know it's a stretch going from a guy who was not even a top team player this time last year to now an MVP favorite. But in my opinion, I think he's got to be in the top 4. KJ, what do you think about Garrett Knight's MVP case?
Yeah, I think Garrett Knight is going to lead the team in over the fence home runs. I mean, he's really got so much power. I mean, last year, he had a ton of balls to the wall that only got singles because of his speed. Close to leading the team in extra base hits, and he only played in the fall. So that's how dominant Garrett Knight was in the fall. He's got the highest exit velo out of anyone. He's the biggest kid out of anyone. He can hit the ball farther than everyone. And I think when you have all those factors, he makes a very intriguing case to win MVP.
Yeah, this guy's an absolute beast. And like you said, KJ, if he comes out and hits 10 home runs in spring, summer, I don't see how he isn't the MVP when all things said and done. Number 5, I'm going to go ahead and go with a little bit of a tie here with the two top guys on 14U Floyd. I mean, I think Evan Lancaster and Joey Burgess both have a stake to be in this spot, and I just couldn't choose between the two of them. I think Joey certainly with the higher ceiling, and I think Evan potentially with the higher floor. But these two guys, I think both are going to have MVP caliber seasons. I think when you saw what Evan did in the BWL against better pitching than what he's going to see in the spring, summer, I think it's really intriguing. And then when you see what Joey Burgess has been doing in the free swing cage, he just hit 99 this week. I think you could be talking about two of the best hitters in the Bears, and I think either one of them, if they're the best hitter on 14U Floyd, and this 14U Floyd team is very, very good, I could see either one of them being the MVP. Moving on to the high school rankings here, starting with number 1, it's got to be Mac Floyd, the first Bear D1 player. I think this guy, kind of like ZZ, the best overall player in the entire Bears. This guy's a beast. Bernie, I know you've always kind of been an advocate of Mac being the best player in the Bears, and I think he's in the better form now than he ever has been to continue what he did in the BWL and be MVP once again. Give me your thoughts on Mac's MVP case.
Yeah, if you're going to run through all the facets of the game, he's the best defender in the Bears. I think he is the best hitter, right? I think the one knock on him was that he didn't have the Brennan power, right? I said that before on the show, but he showed that he does have it last fall. He's great on the bases, great on the mound, right? I think you can make an argument that he might be the best player in every facet of the game on the Bears.
Yeah, and if it's not going to be Mac, I think the only player who can really hit with Mac, and the only player who I think is capable of out-hitting Mac potentially, is, of course, Brendan Nickerson. I mean, one of the best players in Bear history. At this point, KJ, like I said, if there's anybody who's going to out-hit Mac, it's going to be Brendan, and if he comes out and hits 10 home runs in that short time at the high school season, spring, summer, how do you not give the MVP to him? What do you think about Brendan's chance to be MVP in his last summer season?
Yeah, I think Brendan, even at his worst, is still a double-digit home run guy. I mean, that's how good this guy is. I think for him, it's just about staying healthy, staying with confidence, and I think when Brendan and Mac are both at their best, Brendan's gonna hit. Mac might have a higher average, but I think Brendan might hit 10 more home runs.
Yeah, kind of like the same thing with Garrett and even Diego. I think Brennan has the opportunity to be the best hitter on what could be the best high school team. So, 100%. I think these, in my opinion, that's the two-horse race at the top. But if there is going to be another guy who wins it, I think, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't go any further than Jack Dalton here at number 3. I think Jack Dalton is the third best player in the entire Bears, behind Mac and Harrison, in my opinion, in terms of all-around players. And I think Jack is going to come out and have an absolutely monster year. Bernie, again, I feel like this could be a stretch, but when you look at the numbers Jack was able to put up, even when he moved back to Dalton last fall, I think there's a great argument to be made that Jack could lead the way for this Dalton squad. What do you think about Jack's case to be the MVP, Bernie?
Yeah, like you said, he played 14 last summer, won the MVP, and then he moved back up to his high school with Dalton and was still one of the best heroes on that team. I don't see a reason why I can't do it this year. Look, we always say best hero on the best team. I think a lot of people would tell you that Dalton's been our best team, high school team, the past couple seasons.
Yeah, and if it's not going to be Dalton, Floyd, and I think when you try to think of who the best hitter on 15U Floyd is, I think there's a lot of names. Obviously, Wes Brody, I think, had the highest OPS in the full season last year. You've got guys like Ben Combs, Andrew Willeret. But for me, in number 4, I'm going to go with Landon Nickerson here to be the preseason MVP. I think if I had to put my money down on the best hitter on 15U Floyd, I think right now, if you're going strictly offense, I got to go Landon Nickerson on that 15U Floyd team. I think he's got the most raw power. And again, if typically the leader in home runs is probably going to be the MVP. And I think Landon's got that potential. KJ, when you look at Landon and maybe a little bit of a down year by his standards last year, how do you see him bouncing back and having a potential MVP case this summer?
Yeah, I think the only thing that can hold Landon back sometimes, I think he doesn't expand his zone. He's the type of hitter, man. He's not going to swing at a bad pitch, and I think sometimes walking, if Landon walks, it almost hurts the team because he's such a good hitter and they want him to do damage. So, if when Landon's at his best, he's the best hitter on this team, I think, by far. He's got the most power. He's got the highest exit velo. And again, all those factors make him a good case to win it.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a statement year here for Landon Nickerson. But like I said, Ben Combs, Wes Brody, Andrew Willard, I think are all great cases for this as well. Finally, Bernie coming in at number 5. I think there are a ton of players to consider here. I decided to go with Tegan. I believe is the reigning MVP. Am I right about that, Bernie? I know he won it either in the summer or the fall. I don't remember which one. He definitely has won an MVP in the last 2 seasons. But this guy's a beast. I mean, you can argue maybe the best two-way player in the Bears in terms of what he's done over the past couple seasons. But I think you can't deny Tegan's put up. And again, I think there's an argument to be made based strictly on resume that Tegan maybe should be higher on this list. But Bernie, what do you think about Tegan's MVP case this spring-summer?
Yeah, look, this guy has been in the MVP conversations, I think, since we started doing BBN. Whether it's spring or fall, every single season he's in the conversation. And look, I think his kind of path here is that Dalton does end up being our best high school team, and he out-hits Jack. Again, best hitter on the best high school team. That's kind of his path to win MVP.
Yeah, and again, kind of like what we talked about with ZZ and Mac, Tegan's a platinum glove level defender. He's an ace on the mound, and I think when you put all that together, he makes a very compelling MVP package. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network. We've got one more BBN until the season finally begins. I can't believe it, but very excited. Next week, we're going to be talking about all things Bears 2024, so be sure not to miss it. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network. We'll talk to y'all next week.